Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom's April 2023 release is now available, and it's another really cute release. They have a new gnome and a Build-A-Booth die set, along with lots of other fun goodies. So here's a look at the entire release. And if you are interested in any of the products, I do have links provided in the description box below. The first item is Moroccan Stencil. Currently, this is not available for purchase. This is the freebie you'll receive if you purchase at least $50 worth of product, and one item has to be from the new release. And this is only available on Thursday and Friday or while supplies last. The next item is a stamp set called Let's Fiesta. It's a small stamp set with an image and 2 sentiments, and there are coordinating outline dies for the image and both of the sentiments. I'll pull out the cover sheet so you can get a better look at it. The 2 sentiments are Fiesta like there's no mañana and Let's Fiesta. Then we have an image of a cactus wearing a sombrero. The next item is a sentiment stamp set. This is Cinco De Gnomo. We have the stamps and coordinating outline dies. And the stamps and dies come in a nice Ziploc bag. I've already separated mine and added them to a magnetic sheet. Lots of really fun sentiments, very typical with Jaded Blossom. Next we have a stamp set, and there are not coordinating dies for this. It's called Tacos for Sale. It's designed to work with their Build-A-Booth die set, but you can also use it individually. Lots of great options to add to your booth sign. And there is a new Build-A-Booth die set. This one's called Taco Add-ons. So here's where you can see the sentiments work really well with the die set. You can create mini tacos, a little tapestry, and also some chili peppers. And the Tacos for Sale set has the sentiments Tacos for Sale, Pepper Bar, Taco Night, lots of really fun options. And here's a look at the dies. Again, they do not come on this magnetic sheet. Next up is the new gnome add-on die set. It's called Cinco de Mayo. Lots of fun new images. There's a new hat, we have a sombrero, and images for the gnome to hold, or you can use them individually. We have a piñata, a taco, a cactus, maracas, a margarita, and a glass of tequila. My favorite images are the cactus and the taco. The final item that's included in the release is a stencil set. This is chili pepper stencil. There are 2 pieces. I'll pull it out of the package so you can get a better look. One layer has the body of the pepper and the other is the stem. Stencils are always fun to use to create your own pattern paper since you can customize the colors. I do have several cards to share with you using the new April release. For several of the cards, the pattern paper I'll be using is from Reminisce. It's their Mexican Fiesta collection. I bought 5 of the 12 by 12 sheets, and it works perfectly with the new April release. And for a couple of the cards, I'll also be using a little bit of Doodlebug Designs Rainbow Petite Prints. And if the products are still available, I will add links in the description box below. For card design number 1, I cut out a small piece of the green linen pattern paper from Doodlebug, and I also have some light blue cardstock. I'll adhere the green pattern paper piece to the bottom of the blue cardstock, put ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. Next I'll add the booth die cut, and I've already assembled it just to save time on this video. I thought it would be really fun to have a bright red booth. I'll have one of the gnomes stand behind the booth, and since you won't see his feet, I don't need to worry about that part. This gnome will be wearing the new sombrero, and I love all the stitch detail on the hat. The bottom curve of the hat is designed to line up perfectly with the top curve of the beard, but since I'm not adding it to the main outline piece, I'm putting a little bit of glue at the top of the beard and attaching the hat. Then I'll add his mustache and nose. On the back side, I will put a piece of double-sided adhesive tape just to hold the gnome together until he's attached to the card. Now I'll add my gnome behind the booth. The very top of the hat will sit in front of the booth, so I'll add just a small drop of glue there. And I'll also add a piece of double-sided adhesive tape. I'll put glue at the bottom of his beard, and I'm having him stand so just the bottom of his mustache is hanging over the edge of the booth. Once I have my gnome in place, I'll put adhesive on the back of the booth and attach it to my card. Now I'll start working on the taco bunting. I cut out the main piece from some white cardstock. Then I have all my little pieces to assemble the taco. I have 4 tacos already assembled. I used some yellow cardstock for the shell, some green cardstock for the lettuce, and orange cardstock for the little pieces of shredded cheese. Once I have my tacos all assembled, I'll glue them to the bunting. And I have 1 extra taco that I'll be adding to the top of the booth next to the sign. The tiny wooden bowl I'm using to hold all the little die cut pieces was made by my father. He does woodworking as a hobby and makes beautiful pens, bowls, and vases, so I requested a small little bowl that I could use in my videos. Once I've attached all the tiny tacos, I'll put glue on the back of the bunting piece and adhere it to the lower portion of the booth. I love how it has the little ties on both ends. I've already stamped out the sentiment "Tacos for Sale," and the stitched rectangle die is part of the Build-A-Booth die set. Put foam dimension on the back and I'll adhere it in the upper left-hand corner of the booth. I'm also adding a stitch circle die cut, and this die is also from the original Build-A-Booth set. And that's where I'll add my last taco image, and I did put foam dimension on the back of that little taco. I also stamped out the sentiment "Live like every day is Taco Tuesday." I have foam dimension on the back and I'll adhere it to the bottom portion of the booth. Then for a little extra detail on the sign, I cut out 2 of the teeny tiny chili peppers, and I decided to cut them out of white cardstock, and I'm using some Copic markers to color them green. And I did make the stems brown, and my daughter has informed me that the stems of jalapenos are actually green, not brown. I'll adhere the tiny jalapenos on the lower sign. For final finishing touch, I'm using a white gel pen to add some highlights to my gnome, the tacos, and also the red booth. Since the booth does take up most of an A2 size card, I decided not to add any embellishments. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Jaded Blossom released their Build-A-Booth die sets this year, and they're already some of my favorites. For card design number 2, I'm using a card sketch for inspiration. This is from Sketch Saturday. It's number 722. And if you are interested in any of the sketches I use in this video, I share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For this card, I selected 2 pattern papers from the Mexican Fiesta collection. They are both fairly busy, so I will add some Love from Lizzie peel-offs along the edge of the tapestry pattern paper. I'm first using the black pinstripe peel-offs, the narrowest width along the very edge. Then for a little bit of sparkle, I'll use the pink holographic peel-offs in the pinstripe style, this time the widest width. I'll wrap the ends around the back, layer this piece on some pink cardstock. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next, I'll add a stitch circle die cut, and I did cut this out from some white shimmer cardstock. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the lower left-hand corner. This card will be featuring several of the small cactus images from the new Gnome add-on die set. I cut out the background piece from some green cardstock, and I have 3 different colors of planters: purple, yellow, and pink. I selected some fun colors that match the pattern paper. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together, and for a little extra detail on all of the planters, I'm adding a Love from Lizzie peel-off This is the mini twinkle style in the silver color, putting the smallest one at the very front of each of the planters. Also using a black pen to add just a tiny little detail next to that little twinkle sticker. I'll use a white gel pen for some highlights on the cactus, and I'll add all three of them to the circle. I'll start with the yellow in the back. I'm using glue to adhere it in place. Before adhering the other two images, I'll add a narrow strip of black cardstock, and I did put foam dimension on the right and left side of that black strip since it is going over the circle die cut. I'll remove the release paper and put glue in the center and adhere that narrow black strip in place. For the cactus with the purple planter, I have foam dimension on the back, and I'll adhere that on the left side. For the cactus in the pink planter, I'll use slightly thicker foam dimension. Put a piece on the back, remove the release paper, and adhere it on the right side of the circle, sitting more on top of that black strip of cardstock. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out, Happy Birthday, and this is from Jaded Blossom's So Many Birthdays stamp and coordinating die set. I'll adhere it in the lower left-hand corner. For a little extra detail, I'm adding two small banners in the upper right-hand corner, cutting a larger one from some black cardstock and a smaller one from some pink cardstock. I'll adhere the black one down using some glue, add just a tiny piece of scrap cardstock on the right before adhering the pink banner down. And I'm just cutting out the banners myself. Cut a fishtail on the bottom. On the right side, I'll cut it in slightly at an angle, flip over that piece, and do the same thing on the other side. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add some black gem stickers, and these are left over from my stash. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. I love the cactus image, probably because I live in Western Washington, and we really don't have any natural growing cactuses here. Now moving on to card design number 3. I'm using the Moroccan stencil set. I have a strip of yellow cardstock on a mini stencil mat, and I'm using the Sauna ink color from Catherine Pooler, going for a very tone-on-tone look. Since the cardstock strip is wider than the stencil, I'll need to readjust this stencil so I can get the left side of that cardstock strip. I won't be using this entire piece, but I wanted to make sure I have a large enough piece to fit on my card. The card sketch I'm using for inspiration is from MFT. This is number 639. Put some ATG tape on the back of my stenciled cardstock piece, and I'll adhere it at an angle following the card sketch. I'll flip over this panel, use my scissors to cut off the extra. And I love this pattern paper I'm using for the background. For a little contrast and sparkle around the stenciled cardstock piece, I'm adding some Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the copper mirror color, and it has a slight gold overlay. I'm using the widest width. I'll wrap the ends around the back, layer this piece on some black cardstock, then I'll add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next, I'll add a stitch circle die cut, and I did cut this out from some white shimmer cardstock. I'll adhere it to the card using some glue, and this is where I'll be featuring another adorable gnome. And I already have him mostly assembled. He's wearing the sombrero, and I did add some mini circle peel-offs to the gold band on the sombrero for a little extra detail. I'll adhere him down using some glue, and he'll be holding a pair of maracas. I did put foam dimension on the back of the maracas and his hands, so they're popped up slightly. For sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. This is Shake Your Maracas. I cut out a second outline piece from some green cardstock, layered the two pieces together so I have a drop shadow of green underneath the sentiment. For a final finishing touch, I'll add some green enamel dots around my little gnome. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. Now moving on to card design number 4. I'm using the chili pepper pattern paper for the background, Adding 2 wavy border die cuts, and these are from Jaded Blossom's border die set. I put double-sided tape on the back of the larger wavy piece. For the smaller piece, I'll put glue on the back. I'll adhere both of those to the lower portion of the card, flip over the panel to trim off the extra. Then I'll layer this piece on some black cardstock, put ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I cut out a large rounded tag from some white shimmer cardstock, and I'm using it more like a stitched arch since I will be covering up the whole of the tag. I'll put glue on the back and adhere the tag on the right side of the card. I've already assembled most of my little girl gnome, and she has the leaping legs from the new leg add-on die set. I'll adhere her down using some glue. This little gnome will be holding a couple of red chili peppers. I've already attached the stem on top. I'll glue the 2 chili peppers together and also add her hands. Then I'll put some foam dimension on the back and adhere them to my little girl gnome. I use Doodlebug's rainbow petite print gingham pattern paper for her dress and some solid yellow cardstock for her hat. I think the gnomes always look very odd until I add their hands and whatever item they're holding. I do need to cut some tiny little foam pieces to put behind her hands. Remove the release paper and add a little bit of glue before adhering the chili peppers in front of my little girl gnome. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out, wishing you a spicy birthday. And I did cut out a second background piece so I could have a red drop shadow. I'll pop up the sentiment using some foam dimension and adhere it in the upper left-hand corner. For a little extra detail on her hat, I'm adding some yellow hearts. These are shape sprinkles from Doodlebug. For embellishments, I'll add some black mini circle peel-offs. Put 3 in the upper left-hand corner around the sentiment and 2 in the lower right-hand corner. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen to add a few highlights to the chili peppers. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The leaping legs for the gnomes are so much fun. There's also the option to have them doing the splits. Now moving on to card design number 5. I selected this fun, colorful pattern paper for the background, and using Jaded Blossom's stitched oval die, I cut out that opening. I'll be layering the pattern paper on some red cardstock, but first I'll attach a piece of bright blue cardstock. I will be adding some die cut images in that opening, and that blue is just a little too bright. So I'll be covering it up with a piece of vellum, and I thought it would be fun to add a little extra detail. I used a die from Pink Fresh Studio to add that fun stitch detail. To adhere the vellum, I put a piece of double-sided adhesive tape all along the outside edge. Then I'll adhere it onto the red cardstock piece. On the back side of the pattern paper, I did add some foam dimension just for a little extra detail. I'll remove the release paper and adhere that piece onto the red cardstock. Now I'll be adding 3 of the taco images. I've already assembled 2, and I'll assemble the 3rd one here with you. I cut out the shell from some yellow cardstock, the lettuce from green cardstock, and the shredded cheese from some orange cardstock. I will be popping up all of the tacos using some foam dimension. This taco image is from the Cinco de Mayo gnome add-on set. It's larger than the taco image on the Build-A-Booth add-on set. And I'll add all 3 of the tacos into the oval opening. The sentiment, I've already stamped and cut it out, just here for the tacos. I think that's a really fun sentiment. I'll adhere the sentiment in the lower left-hand corner. For a little extra detail, I'll cut out a banner from the same red cardstock and attach it in the upper right-hand corner. I call this a whimsical banner, and it adds such a fun detail to the card. After I cut a fishtail, I'll cut the right side at a slight angle, flip over that piece, and do the same thing on the other side. For embellishments, I'm using some older gem stickers from Honeybee Stamps. Put 3 around the sentiment and 2 in the upper right-hand corner. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add a few highlights to the 3 tacos. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 6, I'll be using the new Chili Pepper Stencil set. Instead of stenciling on solid cardstock, I'm using some pattern paper from Sunny Studio. It's their subtle gray tones. I selected a fun diagonal stripe paper. And just because I can, I thought it would be fun to make pink chili peppers. For the pepper, I'm using the Kitsch Flamingo Distress Oxide ink color. And I'm using the entire 6x6 stencil on the pattern paper sheet. But I will be cutting it down to fit on an A2 size card. For the stem of the pepper, I selected Distress Oxide ink Picked Raspberry color. Just a slightly darker pink color. Once I've stenciled that entire pattern paper sheet, I'll remove this stencil to reveal the fun pink chili peppers. Now I'll cut down that panel to 3 7/8 of an inch by 5 1/8 of an inch. I'll add a strip of pink cardstock in the lower left-hand corner. And I made sure to add that strip at the same angle as the diagonal stripes on the pattern paper. I'll add some Love from Lizzie peel-offs along the edge of the pink cardstock. This is the pink holographic color in the pinstripe style. I'm using the narrowest width. I'll wrap the ends around the back, put adhesive on the back of the pattern paper, and add it to a Scallop Rectangle die cut from Jaded Blossom. Put some ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. And you can see just a peek of the white card base showing around the scallop die cut. Next, I'll add a stitched oval die cut, and I did cut this out from some white shimmer cardstock. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the lower left-hand corner. This card will be featuring another adorable girl gnome, and she's wearing a pink apron from the Baking Gnome add-on set. I'll adhere her onto the white oval using some glue. The items she'll be holding are from the same baking add-on set. She has a wooden spoon and a bowl with some kind of goodie that she's mixing up. And I've included a couple of mini pink chili peppers. I've already stamped and cut out the sentiment, muy caliente, and I believe that means very hot. So I thought that worked well with all the chili peppers on the card. I did put foam dimension behind the sentiment, adhered it in the upper right-hand corner. For embellishments on the card, I'm using some pearls from Studio Cadia. This is their bubblegum color. Put 3 underneath the sentiment and 2 in the lower left-hand corner. I'm using an embellishment wand to pick up the pearls, adding just a small drop of Barely Art glue and pressing them in place. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this one turned out. I can never resist making a fun pink card. Now moving on to my final project, which will not be a card, but it is featuring the booth die set. I've already assembled the booth. Now I'll be adding the bunting, and I cut out the little tapestries from one of the pattern papers by Reminisce. Once I have all the small pieces attached, I'll put glue on the back of the bunting and adhere it to the lower portion of the booth. This project will also be featuring one of the gnomes, and I already have most of him assembled. I just haven't added the things that he'll be holding. He's wearing a red and yellow sombrero, and he'll be holding a piñata and a maraca. I have foam dimension on the back of both of the images and his hands. Remove the release paper and add both of those items so the gnome is holding them. I'll put glue on the back side of the gnome just on his right side, and I'll adhere him to the front of the booth. I've already stamped the sentiment for the sign of the booth, Piñatas for Sale, and I set the price at $5. Figured that was pretty reasonable. I put foam dimension on the back of the sign, and I'll adhere both of those to the top of the booth. I have 3 more piñatas all assembled, and I'll tuck those in behind the booth. Trying to make it look nice and full. That way customers will be interested when they come looking for a piñata. I'll add glue in all the areas where the piñatas are touching the booth. And on the back side, I'm adding some double-sided tape to make sure the stick of the piñatas stays in place. For a little extra detail on the front of the booth, I'll add 2 small patches of grass. And this die is part of Jaded Blossom's Tree Stump die set. I'll adhere both of those in place using some glue. Now my booth is all finished, and I could easily add this to the front of a card. But I thought it would be fun to make a little treat box. I'm using Jaded Blossom's Scallop Caddy die set for the box. I cut out 2 pieces since you'll need 2 pieces to create the box. It has the perforated line so you know where to fold the pieces. Now if I assembled the box as is, it's too tall to fit behind the booth. So I will be trimming off that scallop top. And I'll do the same thing for the other piece. Now I can assemble my box. So I'll fold all of those pieces, add some double-sided tape to the 2 small tabs. And for a little extra reassurance, I'll also add a little bit of glue to those tab pieces. So after I remove the release paper, add just that tiny bit of glue. I'll fold in the short side. So now I have the front and back of the box, and I'll lay the 2 pieces together so I can assemble the full box. Super easy to assemble. And Jaded Blossom has a wide variety of dies where you can create different favor bags and boxes. At the very bottom of the box, I'll add some glue. That way the goodies won't slip out of the box. Now I can attach my box to the booth. I'll put some double-sided tape on the front of the box, remove the release paper, and also add some glue. I'll also remove the release paper on the back side of the booth and attach those 2 pieces together. I also cut out another booth die cut piece. I didn't decorate it since it'll be the back side of the box. I'll put double-sided tape on the other side of the treat box, a little bit of glue, and attach the back side of the booth. Now I have an adorable little treat box. And you could add all kinds of goodies inside the box. It would fit a gift card, but I'll be putting a bunch of candies inside. I'll first put a little bit of shredded paper in the bottom of the box. My husband knew of a local Mexican store, so he went out and bought some fun Mexican candies. And I'll put an assortment of candies inside the box, trying to fill it up as much as possible. It's fun that the top of the booth creates a little handle for your treat box, and you could leave that as is, but I decided to put a piece of double-sided tape on the back to seal those 2 pieces together. So there is my adorable little booth treat box. And I forgot to show it in the video, but I did make 2. With all of Jaded Blossom's Build-A-Booth add-on sets, you could make adorable treat boxes for any occasion. And I know they'll be coming out with more add-on sets throughout the year. Now here's another look at the 14 cards and projects I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new April 2023 release. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Jaded Blossom never disappoints with their fun stamps, dies, and stencil sets. Their gnomes are super popular, and they keep coming out with more and more fun add-on sets. And if you weren't aware, Jaded Blossom stamps, dies, and stencils are all made in the US. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.